In the early 1960s and before the Nigerian Civil War, agriculture was Nigeria's economic mainstay, which accounted for more than 80% of her gross domestic product. Soon after the Civil War, Nigeria began to witness a rapid downturn in the agricultural output as a result of the oil boom that started in the early 70s and onwards. The oil boom came with an outpouring of surplus money into the national treasury to the extent that there was no problem with having money, but how to spend it. This feeling, coupled with the fact that individuals never really had to put in much effort any longer to get anything that money could buy, agriculture and indeed farming became very unattractive so long as money could import anything the nation needed. Governments, corporate bodies and individuals turned their focus towards the new trade, and agriculture lost its noble place, nose-diving almost indefinitely. Nigeria then became a mono economy and one of the worst consumer nations in the world. The global meltdown of the early 2000s, along with some unpredicted turbulence in the world oil markets and increasing insecurity within nations, began to infringe on oil fortunes, thereby forcing drivable revenues from oil to dwindle world over, including Nigeria. In attempts to address this situation, successive Nigerian governments came up with different policies to diversify the economy and also return agriculture to its former place of pride. However, all efforts geared at making this dream a reality had always been incoherent, haphazard and tinted with politics, lacking any sincerity of purpose. It is a fact that no agricultural project ever initiated and managed by the government has ever succeeded. The national economic climate. The economic climate of Nigeria has undergone a lot of structural changes over the past 2 decades. Significant among them being the paradigm shift from oil as the number one income earner for the nation to agriculture and non-oil sectorial activities. The dwindling oil revenue of the country in recent times, which has led the economy to nosedive ostensibly beyond predictable levels, has also forced the need for diversification and exportation in other sectors. As a result of this, there is increased pressure on the private sector of the economy to assume its rightful role as the engine of growth in the economy, particularly focusing on agriculture. To a reasonable extent, there has been some improvements in the microeconomic indices as of 2017, but the gross domestic product only increased at an average of 4%. This gain has been wiped off by the skyrocketing inflation, which is now at about 28.9% mark. The capacity utilization of industries that hitherto reached 55% within the same period has suddenly dropped drastically due to the very high cost of foreign exchange of 1,500 naira to $1 US. The oil sector's contribution to the national economy, which has been paramount over the years, suddenly dropped to below 20% as a result of global oil sector misgivings. This situation has therefore forced the revolution of the non-oil sector. Operation Feed the Nation was introduced by the federal military government headed by General Olusegun Obasanjo in 1976 to 1979. It had the specific focus of increasing food production on the premise that the availability of cheap food would ensure a higher nutrition level and invariably lead to national growth. Operation Feed the Nation was launched to address the problem of rising food crisis, rural-urban migration, and escalating food import bills. This program attempted to mobilize the general public to participate actively in agricultural production and ensure self-sufficiency in food production. The Operation Feed the Nation policy, launched in Nigeria in 1976, looked good on paper. It had a clear statement of objectives and a logical implementation plan. In practice, however, it failed. We all know that our nation is facing a very difficult moment, and it has become clear that all hands must be on deck to get us out of this difficult self-imposed situation. This program, Operation Feed the Nation, is aimed at galvanizing the now dampened interest of our people towards farming as a way of stemming the tide of food scarcity and creating employment for the teeming hungry population.